From Julia's death leading Jay down a life of crime to Smurf having Catherine murdered by her own son. Here are some of the saddest character deaths and departures from Animal Kingdom ranked. Starting with Tupi at number 15. I mean, there's not a lot of people out there that can deny that the character wasn't really the best out there. He straight up betrayed the Codys and even went so far as to steal their latest score. But it does take quite a lot of courage to actually wear his sign of betrayal so proudly, making sure that he never forgets what he's done to the people he once worked with. But everyone saw his death coming sooner or later, mainly because he just kept on pulling off similar stunts. So his death was sad, but it was nothing compared to other characters in the show, such as Mia, who takes up number 14. Ever since she first showed up in the show, she's been one of the most hated characters, especially since she was behind the deaths of both Lucy and Boz. On top of that, people actually despised her so much that she lasted only 20 episodes before being killed off. But even then, there's no denying that she had more of an impact on the show than Tupi. So it's safe to say that some people out there were sadder over her death, which ultimately came at the hands of Jay in the 5th season. But it only gets worse from here, because you've got Morgan Wilson at number 13. While this character might not have been the best that the show has to offer, she was surely a step up from someone like Mia. For any of you out there that might not remember this, Wilson was Smurf's lawyer, the very same one who met Jay multiple times for some financial issues that were going on. All the while Jay was in prison. Overall, she was quite manipulative, honestly, and was only trying to get something out of the entire situation. But she was then duped by Jay when she was killed off in one of the most brutal moments in the entire show. Though even that was nowhere near as brutal as Jed's death, which comes in at number 12. Colin's boyfriend's brother was truly an awful person. There's no denying that. And what makes him even worse is that instead of helping Janine with her boyfriend's death, he instead used it as an opportunity to take advantage of her. So as soon as Smurf realized that she was going to die, she went on a revenge spree and killed him off. While the character's death wasn't that emotional, the circumstances surrounding the whole thing really took it up a notch. And of course, number 11 has to be Nikki. While almost every single character from the show had done a lot of bad things, Nikki is arguably one of the better ones. So obviously, people were really sad about her not being in the show anymore, despite her not being one of the smartest or strongest people in the show. She was a good character, especially considering she's another one of Jay's flings. Thankfully, she's one of the few characters that gets out alive. Sadly, Julia Cody at number 10 wasn't as lucky. I mean, it's because of this character's death that Jay turns into one of the darkest characters in the show. In fact, you could solely blame her for leading him down a rabbit hole of criminal life. Though she did die pretty early on in the show, there's no denying that it's much more important than a lot of other characters I've already talked about. Just like another member of the Cody family, Lena Blackwell, takes up number 9. While she was in the family, Pope was the only one that really loved her, like she was his own daughter. But other than that, it was a nightmare for the character, so it makes sense that she would go off to find another home, especially considering that she's a kid. But that doesn't change the fact that the goodbye both of them shared with one another, well, it left everyone crying their eyes out. Just like number 8, when Amy's character left the show.
Hi.
Hey.
You alright?
He tackled me.
What? Who tackled you?
A man.
There's no denying that Amy is a fan favorite in the entire show. Just your average church lady, who had a spark with Pope, of course. There's no denying that she was a good match for someone as nice as Pope. But behind the scenes, plans were going on about robbing the church for the money they'd raised in a fundraiser. So obviously, she then told him that she never wanted to see him again, as any normal person would. And then you never saw her again. Just like you never saw Angela again, marking the 7th saddest death in the show. While she might have been the best friend of none other than Julia herself, there's no denying that everyone, both the audience and every single character in the show, absolutely hated her. But of course, because she was Julia's best friend, she had a really important role to play in the show. Things were actually going pretty well for a short period of time, especially since she was trying her best to get along better with Julia's twin brother. But nothing prepared me for when Pope found out that the real reason she disappeared was because she had been murdered. This was one of the wildest twists in the entire show and just throws a solid punch to the gut. But even that's nothing compared to number 6 on the list, Lucy. Fans really thought that Boz's flame this time would be different, especially since she didn't let any of the Cody family members get to her. Plus, she was straight up badass, and even got Smurf to admit to Boz's murder. So, a character so good dying right in front of her own son really tore out everyone's hearts. Once again, that was all because of Mia. But a death even more gut-wrenching than that was Catherine Blackwell at number 5. I mean, what could get sadder than finding out that Lena's mom was gone as well? Like the kid hasn't already had one of the worst lives of all time. And the only thing that Catherine did wrong was crossing Smurf. It's not like she was the biggest character or anything, she was just a normal mother in a show. But the fact that Smurf manipulated her own son to kill her off really makes you sick when you think about it, truly earning her a place in the saddest deaths of the show. And another one added to the list of crappy things Pope has gone through. But number 4 definitely messed me up. I mean, Colin's death really took it up a notch. Colin is probably the best person that Janine has ever been with. Of course, he still had his flaws, but what mattered was that he was trying to fix them. He was an honorable character that everyone loved, so it struck a completely different chord for everyone when he died in the 5th season. Not just that, but he died trying to save both Janine and her twins while she was still pregnant with them. I mean, do I need to say anything to tell you how devastating it was? But enough about that. Let's talk about Boz taking up the 3rd spot. Who could forget one of the best characters in the show? Someone so complex who was just about to start his dream life, and everything was finally going right for him. Plus, there was a chance that he was Jay's real dad. So it was super sad to see him go with so much still to be explored about him. Just like number 2, Adrian leaving the show. While this character might not have died a brutal death like some of the others on this list, there's no denying that his leaving was absolutely heartbreaking. Something that I can never recover from. I mean, he just told Duran that he's the worst thing to ever happen to him and then just left. And the saddest on the list has to be Janine Smurf Cody. Janine was one of the most brutal and toxic people in the entire show, but there's no denying that she's been on the show through it all, and no one's had the same impact as her, so it was devastating to see her finally die. Losing her changed the entire show, but at least she went out the same way that she lived her life, with a bang. That's been a look into some of the saddest character deaths and departures in Animal Kingdom.